Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading property experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle channel, and Ben Kingsley, Chair of Property Investment Professionals of Australia, and the 2014 and 2015 Property Investment Advisor of the Year.
Hi, Ben Kingsley here, and yes, with a voice that's consistent with the weather down here in Melbourne, so I've lost my voice. We recorded the podcast that you're about to listen to yesterday with Kieran from API, so it's a great podcast, but unfortunately we've had an audio problem. So don't think it's on your end. The audio is actually on our end, so we do apologise for that, but we hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast.
All right, folks, you're on the Property Couch, where each week Ben and I give you the insider's guide to property investing. Hello, mate. How are you?
G'day, bud. How you going?
Very good. Now, I'm disappointed.
Why is that?
Because I actually thought that Fremantle was tanking, and that's what I was holding my hat on. But yesterday they actually flogged Essendon, so therefore we're just rubbish this year.
You know, on Olympics. Let's just talk about the Olympics because I got nothing.
Oh, you're going to divert because of Collingwood.
We got spanked on the weekend, so no, that's it. I'm just looking forward to the Olympics because I don't think I've got much to look forward to for the rest of the season.
Fair enough, too. And the old arch enemy is doing better than you guys, too.
Oh, that kills me. I mean, look, the fact that Essendon are down on the bottom, that's always good, but Carlton and Essendon just need to be down lower. I don't care about anyone else.
Mate, they're overperforming, which is nice. Hey, special guest week this week.
Yes.
How exciting. We've got Kieran Clair in with us today, who is the editor of the Australian Property Investor magazine. Hello, Kieran.
Hello to you too.
How are you?
Very well.
That's good. We're excited to have you in. You see lots and lots of stuff being in the hot seat with the magazine. You see lots of, philosophies and theories and articles and success stories and case studies. What's it like being the editor?
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, Bryce. There is so much out there to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific fun. I sort of graduated into the big seat after working as a reporter there for a couple of years, and just the whole shift and the wealth of experience of being able to be bombarded with all of these ideas for the magazine and then getting to filter those into something that hopefully is useful to readers and investors is a pretty exciting challenge.
You mentioned the hot seat. What's it like to be in the hot seat? Because you're in control of your own articles. We've done a few with you over the journey.
Yeah,
but all of a sudden, you're in control of every article that runs over your desk.
It's a little overwhelming at times, I must say. It's good fun, but it is overwhelming because you think about the great diversity that we've got out there in the property community. You know, you've got first timers right through to those advanced investors who are looking at big developments or commercial space, and you've got to try and appeal to a broad church in the property industry and still keep those messages that you want to that you know the property sector. Yeah. And so I've been on a pretty active plan of canvassing opinion. I'm out there with my email address, which I'm happy to give out at any time. I want people to tell us what they like and what they don't like about the magazine, what they want to hear about, what they don't want to hear about, and the learning curve should be for me as well as the readers, I think.
Well, I've got to say, it was the first magazine. I think I've got the third edition of it. Episode. I was going to say. When did it start? What year?
We're going into our 20th year. We're celebrating that.
Yeah. So there you go. I've got all of those in a library here in our offices, in fact. So I should show you that.
We don't have them all.
Well, I don't know whether I've got every one of them, but I've been a subscriber for many in a day. So that was part of, in my early 20s, it would have been 23, 24 when I found the magazine. There was a lot of Queensland-centric stuff because it was Queensland-based. But as you've evolved, it's been one of the leading publications in Australia. So credit to you and the team who have put it together over the journey. It really has, in my early days, gave me some really great insights and case studies in which I then learnt from, and then obviously the sort of money management and my theory around property investment and Bryce. It's been a great addition to educating Australians.
So what you're saying is your success is all down to me.
Is that because you're calling it up?
Thing,
there's a line that would suggest that because of the API magazine that I'm actually standing here chatting to you today, and I've mentioned this before, but I was working in my sister's news agency back in 1998 Have you heard this story?
No, I have not. I'm looking forward to it.
And prior to that, it was about 1996. I put it in the book. It might have been 1994. I saw Jan Summers up on the whiteboard on the Ray Martin show scribbling about property investment. I thought, why isn't everyone doing this? And it wasn't the great Australian barbecue topic that property investment is today. So, there wasn't many people to talk about it to. And so I was working in my sister's news agency. It was a Friday afternoon, did the 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock shift. I shut the doors and packed it up, and it was pretty quiet. So I used to wander around and pick up the magazines. And I picked up an API magazine that had a group, a national group that were looking to help people buy investment properties. And because I was living in Perth, there was a special one-page feature on the guy who's running the Perth operation. And that actually had a phone number down the bottom. It rang him, and then the rest is history. I'm now involved in property. So, but it was the API magazine that connected the excitement around what I saw with Jan Summers on the Ray Martin show to actually being standing here now. So, as an editor, you probably haven't heard that.
You're welcome.
That thread.
So give us your background, Kieran, in terms of what's your backstory when it comes to how you found yourself in property?
Well, I suppose mine started like many other people in my family. My dad was a financier, worked for Asanda and ANZ, held a real estate license, and had always been around property. But he was one of those classic people that you talk about who never stocked up on a portfolio. He used to buy and sell all the time. And then when I came to leave school, I was at a loss as to what to do and was going to be a teacher. And my dad said, why don't you jump in the car with a mate of mine? He's a property valuer. I think you might like that. So I did. And then the one day I was with him, I was in Brisbane. We travelled to the Gold Coast. I believe he visited a Porsche showroom. This is in the 80s. Sorry, yeah.
What else?
The 80s. Is it anymore? Yeah, exactly. We went and sat on someone's porch and had a cup of coffee, and we kind of did this stuff. Then we got back to his office under his house. And, I sat there while his wife typed up on a, impact typer the reports. And then the next thing I know, he was invoicing out, a few $100s for this day. And I said, this game is for me. This is perfect. This is the job for me. And put myself down to become a valuer and went through that. And sort of graduated straight into, I was in Heron Todd White. Yep. Straight out of college. Yep. I was there for a number of years.
Let's be a shout out for them. We haven't brought them up. They've got a weekly review that they send
monthly.
Monthly, I should say, monthly review. I think it's well worth subscribing to. You get a broad understanding of what's happening, all the different marketplace. So a bit of a shout out for them.
Nice to hear that, because I had a look. Actually, that was part of the story. While I was with HTW, I found that valuation is not the most creative space. This may surprise you. In fact, it's probably a good thing it's not the most creative.
Yeah, no, they've got a job to do.
And
they get paid enough for it.
It's got to be a tougher game. It's got to be a tougher game. And I noticed that they were bringing out the monthly review, and it was sort of a photocopied piece of paper that said, this is what's happened in the market this month. And I thought, gosh, this is boring. So I approached them and said, I have an interest in journalism and writing. I actually did some postgraduate in it. Would you let me have a go at picking the stories? And that's where we kicked off. And it ended up going from like a circulation of 1,000 to when I left it was about 12, 13,000.
Yeah, you're just racking up the wins here. My career is because of you. The Heron Todd White Monthly is because of you.
I just meant to, I appreciate the statue out front. It's terrific.
So how long did we be a valuer for?
Just shy of 23 years.
Wow.
And it was very good. It was a good industry for me. I not only learned a lot about property, I met my wife there. And she's, as I've mentioned previously,
she's not creative.
I'm saying she's the real deal. When you talk about property people, she is the real deal. Like she is the one who is at night flipping through the iPad looking at listings in her favourite suburb after spending all day on property. She'd been flying as a long haul hostie for Qantas for a number of years, but came from a property family. Her dad's an agent, and she studied valuation. I often say, and I mean it in the nicest possible term, she was my assistant, so she was part of the best ever employment contract I ever negotiated. But she approached me, once we were being together for a while, she sort of said, where's your property portfolio? And I said, why would I invest in property? I've been right through the 90s. No one makes money in this thing, like blah, blah, blah. My dad was in my ear too. Well, within 2 years of knowing her, as you'd expect from most blokes, I bought my first unit. and still have that in the portfolio today, and it has been a cracker. So
Which city?
in Brisbane,
Nice.
but in Auckland Flower, just a couple of k's from the city. Been just been terrific. So I put down while we're in the mood for thanking people, so we've got some financial security, and it's entirely down to her, making me take that step left.
And so, what was it about what she told you that gave you the confidence to action it?
Look, I think it was more a matter of
the threats.
I could expand, but it's a family show. No, look, I think it was more a matter of stagnation. You tend to sometimes get in that space. You do see the risks and rewards, but it's kind of, this all looks a little bit too hard, really.
Yeah.
But, the first one's tough. Second one's probably not so tough in comparison. And by the time you work out what you're doing and you're onto your third, suddenly you get the gist of what it is to be an investor. It also made me a better valuer, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Valuers who have built or purchased property probably have a better understanding of markets, a real practical appreciation of how that works.
So prior to that, when you are doing your valuation work, I mean, we had a bit of a chat off air earlier around, the concerns that it raised you because you were going out and valuing properties and they were being valued under purchase price. Or tell us a bit about that story.
No, well, I suppose there's always, when you think about it, kind of the game's full of all sorts of cliches. Valuers are overly conservative and the market doubles every 7 years everywhere, and we're going to build a wall between Mexico and the US. All those catchphrases, things like that sort of come out. But I sort of felt like I don't know. We were seeing properties. You were doing inspections for people. You were trying to get it right. And sometimes that involved a little bit of heartbreak. In the 90s, there was the bad old times of people from Melbourne and Sydney being sold property, on the two-tiered market. And you would occasionally have to make that call to someone where you said, you know what, it's worth 50 grand less than what you paid for it. And that's not a call anyone wants to receive, but I can tell you it's not one you want to make.
But can I ask you a question on that particular point?
Sure.
Did you ever have to make a call to a prospective investor interstate on an established property with the same conversation?
Never.
Interesting.
Really, really cannot recall a time. And I'm a big fan of this. This wasn't scripted, but I am a big fan of established property.
Yeah.
So.
Stop it.
Just replay that section again. 23 years as a valuer, and it's unlikely that you've had situations where existing property that's been market tested has had a poor valuation.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
$50,000 magnitude.
Yeah. And if you do, in that opportunity where the finance is not being controlled by the developer selling the project, there is an opportunity at least to come back and sort of say, you know what, I think these people are being a bit ambitious. And in the good old days before, once again, valuations changed a lot, but in the good old days of valuation, I sound like my dad. The good old days.
Eventually.
Only fall so far from the tree.
I know. You got the opportunity to talk to the client.
Correct.
And tell them your thoughts.
Now, I want to come back to what you were saying before about how once you started to build your portfolio, that it made you a better valuer. What were some of the insights that it gave you that you would then be more objective or subjective? What was it about?
I think that it was just about the actual difficulties or the practicalities, once again, of purchasing a property. Sometimes often people who haven't been through the process probably don't understand the idea of negotiating a contract, lining up your conveyancer, doing the correct searches, those sorts of things. They're not onerous. People do it every day. And if you haven't been through the process, you kind of go, yeah, I get it. But you don't. You've got to go through that process to appreciate. And sometimes, I'm not ashamed to say it. Sometimes it's probably amounted in a better valuation in some situations. Where you go into a market, you can see it's strong and rising. The sales evidence is telling you it's worth $500,000, but you know well that these people are going to have to fight hard to get it for $520. They've contracted for $530. I'm not saying that you step outside the bounds, but you've got to recognise that in strong markets there's a tougher negotiation to make.
Yeah.
And I think if you've been through the process, it's easier to appreciate.
And so that's in Brisbane. So you were doing that, and obviously not a lot of properties go to auction in Brisbane.
No.
Whereas in Sydney and Melbourne, in those tougher markets, usually the agent would be advising their client to take it to auction because that's when you get the surprise result.
Yeah.
As opposed to, traditionally when we have sort of private treaty sales, we usually go a discount off the asking price.
Yeah.
That's the mentality of the people who are I'll put it up there and we'll negotiate down. It's rare that negotiates up, so it's interesting.
Can you give some insights to the listeners on what happens internally when management, are they saying on a Monday morning, make sure, because you just said, look, if I'm a better investor, I'm a better valuer, is management trying to squash that out of you and say, don't deviate from the path, make sure it's conservative, we've got our PI cover on the line here, we're only getting $600, $300 from the bank anyway, whatever it is.
$150.
Yeah. No, I think the polar opposite, and I will say my only experience was with Kierans White. My entire career was with them, so I can't speak for other valuation firms. But it was very much drilled into us too that you've got to be right. If you're overly conservative consistently as a valuer, you're not going to get work because you're killing deals that shouldn't be killed.
Yeah.
There's certainly, stay within the rules, be supportable, don't be ambitious, but don't be too conservative. So there was never a sort of a moment, I don't think, where they sat down and said to us, gee, you better wind back your enthusiasm for property here. Certainly around the table discussions will go on. So, as we have discussed in the past, things like the off-the-plan units that are going on now, if we've got some research, I keep saying we like I'm still there, but if there was research coming out from the organisation suggesting that market's going to be oversupplied and perhaps we should be a little bit more cautious about our market commentary, you're going to let everyone on the team know to keep an eye out for that and make sure that they don't gloss over something that should be honed in on. So I think I'm a valuer. I still am a valuer. I'm still registered in Queensland. And I have a lot of respect for valuers. I think they get the rough end of the stick, but that's no surprise.
No, I agree.
But, their deal is to be out there and be protective. We're kind of a risk mitigation in that sense.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a couple of things because this is really, we haven't really gone into technical valuations and sort of giving a bit of technical thing around that. So just quickly, did you specialise in certain areas or was it always resi or did you do some commercial?
I moved from residential as an assistant. I was in residential and then got taken on by the director who was in charge of residential project development and feasibility studies. So did that for a stretch. And then after a couple of people retired at 24, found myself in charge of that section for about 6 months. Then I took off overseas for 2 years and came back and went between both. When I left in 2012, it was residential valuation only, and we ended up concentrating on our suburbs. Yep. So you had 7 suburbs in your back pocket, and if you saw my latest editor's note, I talk about the idea that you know the value of the property before the car door closes in that situation.
Yeah. When you're so ingrained and specialised in an area, you know your marketplace.
Yeah.
Technical valuation. So when we're talking about off the plane, we're effectively really talking about a valuation on a square metre basis. Is that fair to say? I mean, based on the quality of build and the specifications inside that. I mean, when you were looking to do pre off the plan valuations, was it technical work that you're doing there as opposed to when you're in an existing marketplace where you're looking at size of land and then you're also looking at improvements on the land? How much technical work is done around that versus how much of it is observation?
Sure. My experience weighed very much into suburban Brisbane, so I didn't get a lot of the high-rise units, but I have seen enough of it to know that the fellas and the girls now, of course, there's a large percentage of ladies who are going into the property valuation field, which is terrific. I hope my wife's listening. And
I reckon valuers make great buyers owners, by the way, because they do know their costs really well, they do know value really well, and then they know how to negotiate a deal, so they make a very good buyer's agent.
I'll let you know how things go at API Magazine. So, of course, they're sitting with the plans, and I've seen them analysed down on rates per square metre. They're very familiar with those, particularly the inner city valuers. Yep. They can certainly talk off the cuff about those sorts of applicable rates between balcony space and internal living area and the level and standard of finish. But then a good valuer stands back and looks, and even if the building's not there, they're imagining this is where it's going to be, this is where the other comparables are going to be, this is what they're going to see. You have to be able to sort of stand back and work with your gut. And that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I got as a young valuer was do the technical stuff, but stand back and listen to your gut on how the market's tracking.
Because how a property comes out of the ground for the listeners is exactly that. So if it's medium and high density stuff, what they're working out is how much per square metre internal, external I've got. And I know my build cost because they come out of the ground in build costs and feasibility studies. So you work out your build cost per square metre, your site acquisition cost, and then basically what margin you've got in that. And that's how you work out a feasibility. So a valuer's job is to get in behind that information and basically say, well, that stacks up. And if you're going to give me those fixtures and fittings and that look and feel, and there are some variables, aspects and exclusive location and all those types of things which will make for the site land being worth more. And that's the sort of technical valuation we're talking about. But it's also no different for house and land packages. So off the plan and house and land packages are, in my view, the easiest things to val up because it's very easy to work out what the land sold for. So you've got your cost per square metre of land, and then you know your build cost being, I don't know, sort of call it $9,000 per square metre or whatever it is for high end, $6,500 for mid range, and cheap is maybe $4,500. It's very easy to work out. You know, there's a 200 square metre home on a piece of land worth $100,000 on 600 square metres of dirt. It's incredibly easy to work out. Where it gets difficult is in marketplaces where the land's been fully utilised and
it's not homogenous.
It's not homogenous and so forth.
Well, to a degree, I'd probably vary in that when the valuer comes in on the back end and does an analysis of a contract, their next step is to sit back and say, what we've ended up with is 115 square metres of 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single garage house in this estate. There's one that was built 12 months ago, and it's down the road and it's sold for that amount.
It's market tested.
Will they compete? Yeah. Will someone choose this new house over that one? How much more will they pay for it? And sometimes they don't stack up. Sometimes you are saying that it's too much money. Go and buy a second-hand house in the same estate.
And for our beginners, you do sort of inferior. Can you explain how you would then do the comps in terms of you'd have an inferior, comparable, and a superior? Is that
the pitch is to try and get. I mean, they're very tight on their rules. Sales. Unless they've changed them in the last 2 years, sales have to be within the last 3 months. We'll go to 6, but preferably 3. They should be comparable in construction and type accommodation if possible. And then, you'll look for one that is possibly a bit newer on a bigger block of land. It's going to have sold for more than the one you're valuing. You'll see one that's maybe a bit older on a smaller block of land, a little bit less, and then you're going to find one that's similar. And you get a feel. I mean, it's not just a case of averaging sales or anything like that. You have to assess on each sale how much more or less you would pay for your subject.
It's always it's always interesting that too when a valuer comes back, they often come on the brand new stuff Ben was talking about before. They often come back at the valuation price, purchase price less the marketing fee. These huge marketing fees.
Yes.
Sometimes down to the actual cent in the past that I've seen before when the marketing fees are really unusual amounts.
Well, I had a situation a few years back where I was valuing houses out in the very fringe areas of beyond the Black Stump of Brisbane. You were travelling through farmland to get to the house estate. Why anyone wants 500 square metres with a house on it out in the boondocks, I have no idea.
But when they were sitting in the hotel room in an interstate venue,
it was pretty glamorous.
Up on the screen.
It did look terrific.
Affordable, big negative gearing benefits.
I know, you don't even have to.
Schedule.
It's free money. Of course, we got out there and I said, well, these things are overvalued to buggery. This is a terrible idea. Had a look at the contract, and they were charging $30,000 for television advertising per property on the contract.
Oh my God!
So you've got can anyone make sense of that? This is where their margin was coming in the sales process, and of course, the job of the valuer in that case is to step in and say,
Well, do you remember with the in Queensland in particular, you have the Form 30C, the 27B. The 30C was to say, warning, get a valuation. The 27B was to disclose the commissions. I remember when that first came in, what the builders were doing was getting together with the marketers and saying, all right, we'll just, because you only have to disclose on the land, so therefore they were doing the 27B, disclosing standard REIQ on the land, and then the building contract was loaded massively, which is where they were getting their money, and that was the way they got around the loophole to disclose how much commission they needed, and a lot of people get burnt by that.
And the only way really to try and avoid trouble is to look at the whole thing as a package.
Valuation.
Have a look at the whole thing, stand back and use comparables of established homes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very true. So, good insights for the listeners in terms of how the valuation process works. Back to your portfolio.
More about me.
Yeah, exactly. The statues is drying, so we might as well get back to the portfolio. But so tell us a bit more about you've got the unit in Brisbane. Your wife encouraged you to do that. How have you gone about building the portfolio since? Has it been something that's was quite straightforward to do with your wife's support, or were you still sort of going through some mental barriers?
No, I think once we got underway, I've had a very fortunate life, and I don't mean that in a joke. She came into the picture with me and had established her own portfolio of property. So I personally didn't have that struggle that many people would have. I came into, mind you, I'm investing very late in the game. I'm in my late 30s at this stage. Yeah. I really should have been in it in my 20s, and there's a big mistake.
But that's not. There's people who are probably listening to this in their mid-40s to early 50s.
It's too late for them. I'm sorry, I am joking.
There goes half the reach.
No, of course. But what I'm saying,
don't risk the farm if you are getting in late. So don't try and chase your tail.
I had a lot of financial support, is what I'm saying, in my late 30s to get into that market. We had a good established base of portfolio already.
Good recovery.
So thank you very much. You should see me like a cat in an ice cave. So I was just scratching away at the wall. But look, it was reasonably easy for us. Probably another of the mistakes that I've made is that there was no great strategy involved. It's not necessarily a mistake. We knew the fundamentals of good property, and we knew what would make good investments, and we've invested around Brisbane because we know that market. But I think our strategy has been one of identifying good properties, being prepared to jump, but not actively saying, we need to go towards properties with a better cash flow. We haven't analysed our finances to that sort of nuance. We work on gut with our property portfolio, and so far it's paid dividends for us.
Yeah, you come from a pretty good pedigree of background, though. I mean, so asset selection's been pretty reliable for you because 23 years. Unfortunately, a lot of the listeners have no background in that sort of thing. So do you think that it would be something you'd advocate? So if you were talking to someone at an expo and they came up and said, should we follow your decisions, what would you say to them? Would you spend time in understanding the numbers and the money and the cash flow?
I would. I think that education is one of the things that is most easily accessible nowadays. You've got everything, and while of course I'm going to encourage you to go to API Magazine, we're not the only source out there.
Yep.
There's plenty of
couch.
There's sounds. What's that?
Yeah. Well, we'll tell you that.
I look forward to it. So there's a lot of sources out there, and the internet has just made the world so much smaller and bigger at the same time. I think getting educated is important, and that should be a first step for any investor. They should know who they can trust and who they can't. And maybe the idea is not to drink the Kool-Aid, as they call it. Don't jump on the boat too soon. Get a broad range of experience, a broad range of advice, and then kind of work out what's going to be safe and what works for you. And then the second mistake people make, which I make, is they don't do anything. They get all this really great advice. They find the people they can rely on, and then they miss a cycle or two.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Ben said procrastinate. That's one of the four, as a buyer's agent, that's one of the four things I say to people that a buyer's agent will help you do. Three others, but the second one is procrastinate. Most people have got the story of only I had of, and they often need someone to say, you know what, there's going to be turmoil. The upcoming election is just another distraction. Like when I first was, I remember being in property advisory space back in 1999 when we used to work out the cash flows for most investors who are $10, $12, $13 a week positive on nearly every property that they bought. And then when the GST came in, the tax rates changed, and some people were going to pay $10 a week out of pocket, and we're thinking, well, that's the end of property investment. Nobody's ever going to invest ever again. And of course, we're laughing because here we are 16 years later, and people are often $100, sometimes $200 out of pocket to buy a really good asset. So, have you ever bought brand new?
No, we've built our own home, but we've never. So you look at me running through the billions of properties that I have in my portfolio in my head, looking towards the ceiling, having a think about it. No, we've never bought a brand new property.
Okay. So there's two bits of gold here, Ben, we've got a valuer who's been doing it for 23 years, never personally invested in a brand new property, which is kind of edifying the last 66 episode. But also as a valuer, he's never actually had to make a phone call. I think it was a bit of gold about 10 minutes ago. He's never had to make a phone call to a client or to a borrower that their properties come under valuation by 50 grand on an established property. Two huge bits of gold there.
And look, property price has been great. Last episode we talked about winter is coming, and we think the market is going to soften in certainly Melbourne and Sydney. And we're seeing, this really low interest rate, so people have a bit more confidence. But as the economy starts to slow, that confidence will dry up. And so there's going to be times where this is really, from our point of view, it's unbelievable buying time. But are there any others that you have on your list?
Well, in a way, I suppose, not to take too contrary positions, sometimes you do have to learn to say no.
Yeah.
You do need to know when to jump, but you do have to learn to say no.
Yeah.
I think certainly in those auction situations, we haven't had it so much in Brisbane. As you mentioned earlier, we don't have a lot of auctions in Brisbane, but certainly when we who operate in the Brisbane market see the enthusiasm that occurs in the Sydney market, where you get reports of people paying hundreds of thousands of dollars over a reserve and sellers jumping in for joy at the result. There's a little concern that two people got a bit of ego going. And
Too right.
Australian property, and I will say this, Australian property is terribly forgiving, and historically has been terribly forgiving to people.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of property to choose from. I'm not in the business of giving away $100,000 to miss out on one, and when I could go and get another.
Yeah. Well, we had an imperfect example on the weekend. We went with what we thought was enough to pay fair market value in the current market, and this thing shot the lights out. And so that type of feedback we get back into the team when we discuss those results on a Monday morning, and we basically say to ourselves, all right, if it's getting to that stage, we probably need to keep our powder dry and use our borderless strategy, which is looking at other markets to try and get into, because we don't want to be in a position, or you try not to be in a position where you're buying an asset in, say, 2010 and it's worth, the same amount of money in 2013 or 14. Look, there will be, sometimes where the market will flatten, and on paper it might show a negative return. But you want to be in markets that are up cycle as opposed to that down cycle, and being sensible about it, know when to walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We always like to ask our guests if they can think of like horror stories or something they've seen. But you probably get the position more than most of seeing stories come across your desk. But I guess you're in the business of positivity, not sort of
Well,
have you seen any? We call it roadkill. Have you seen any horror stories that may have not made the
pages? Look, I would.
Question without notice.
I know, but that's okay. Questions without notice are all right. As far as people doing their shirt on property investment, by far and away, there's nothing exciting about this. Far and away has been the two-tier marketing in Brisbane. It's certainly the most heartbreaking, and we're labouring on, but it's that thing where people do turn up and they see the whiteboard and it's filled with numbers, and no one actually went on the ground and paid $200 for an airfare to go and have a look at what they were buying and to do their local research. And that's probably the horror stories we see. If you want to talk about a horror story as a property valuer, yes. I did do a run. Now, I'll apologise to the people of Ipswich. I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on you up there in Brisbane.
We won't call it Ipswich. We'll just call it Ulladulla.
No, that's all right. It's certainly, it's an area that I actually have an affection for, because I valued there for half a decade, and it's a terrific place. It was always the sort of place where in the bad old days on a Friday, you never rocked up with a tie on, because you're either a Fed or there was trouble brewing.
Not from these parts.
Yeah, there was trouble brewing. But I became a bit of a local up there after a while. It was sort of easy to spot around the place. I did have this one time in the days when bookings were made. Well, bookings are now made by the assistants, but we were still working with paper, not computers. And they couldn't get us into a rental property in 123 Smith Street during the week because the tenants weren't there. So they booked me in on a Saturday morning, lined it up with the tenants, and I rocked up there at, an ungodly hour for a Saturday. It was 8 o'clock, I think, that it had been booked in.
Who's up at 8?
Exactly. Barely. Don't get out of bed for less than 10K, as they say. Anyway, I'm of course joking, but I rocked up to 123 Smith Street. I'm not charging enough. And knocked on the door, and this kind of bleary-eyed, their whole body was bloodshot, let's face it, opened the door and gave me a look like, and I said, I'm here for the property valuation. And they looked at me quizzically, and they said, well, this isn't my house. I don't know what's going on. And I said, well, I've got this booked in, and it can go away. And he went, come on in. So I've walked in, and there are people everywhere asleep on the floor. There's empty bottles. This place has gone off until the wee hours.
Every vice that you can think of.
They have enjoyed themselves immensely. Yep. And I've conducted the valuation, measured the house, walked into every room, done the whole thing, and sort of thanked them. I don't even know if anyone knew I'd left as I closed the door. Drove back. On the Monday, I got the call from the bank. They said, what about 123 Smith Street? And I said, yeah, I went there on the weekend. They said, no, you didn't. I said, yes, I did. I was there. So they probably don't remember. He said, no, you didn't. The tenants just called me, wondered where you were for 231 Smith Street.
Oh, through the typo, and you've gone into some stranger's house.
I'm sure it's almost
because you're about to undervalue it. It's been a wear and tear.
Well, actually, a couple of pieces of pizza and a sugar.
Yeah, I was going to say I got a scotch on the way out, which is terrific. That's how you want to. That's the best way to go to your valuer's heart.
That is a good story. Now, you mentioned as we wrap up the podcast for today, you mentioned that you're almost. When's the 20-year celebration? Has it happened? Or?
It's on at the moment. We're doing a series in the magazine, 120 Years of Australian Property,
That's a good series.
and that's been taken decade by decade over this 12 months, which will finish up in about two issues' time, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is basically our 20th year. I couldn't tell you when it was that the owner Lane first opened his garage door and
Lane Boy, yes,
did his best.
Yeah. So is there a future for magazines in general as well as API in the hard copy, or is everyone going to the iPad version?
There is, personally, I believe that there is a future for hard copy in our sort of magazine. Look, our magazine is a reference book that rarely dates tremendously. You can still pull the copies that Ben has hanging around.
I actually indexed all of the magazines and all the stories inside all the magazines.
But the problem is you want to dream about the prices that they used to pay back in 98 to the body.
So I think that, I do think in the hard copy, and that's probably where my heart is, that this should be a library resource for investors. And once again, the idea that I'm out there saying to people, what do you want to know? I've got, I'm in this unique position as the editor where I've got a bank of experts in all sorts of fields who are available to answer readers' questions. And as long as I know what they want stories about, as long as they write and tell me, I will try and answer those and give them access to what would be possibly thousands of dollars in professional fees for next. Interesting question about the digital, though. Yes, there is a rise in the amount of digital access that's going on. And our magazine now, when you subscribe, you get digital and print together. You can't just get the print copy anymore.
Okay.
We're encouraging people, if they want to go that way, certainly to go that way. News agents are closing down all over the place. Shopping centres are probably where we do sales. But I don't know, I've got a lot of faith in the old school.
I'm old school. I've got books on my iPad, and I've got the old-fashioned book, and I prefer I think I just look at the screen too often. I just prefer.
I want to write notes. I want to take things. That's very hard for me to.
Yeah, I'm the same. Do you write notes too?
Every now and then. Oh, look, I've just put a circle next to it.
That's a good note. That's a good note.
Well, 2 or 3 bullet points.
Well, we appreciate having you on. I mean, just to we're in first world problems some of the time, so we've got and I guess if anyone does have any feedback for Kieran, send a note to Ivis, info@thepropertycouch.com.au.
Or some ideas on articles.
Yeah. You can also get me at editor@apimagazine.com.au, which is in the magazine and on the website.
We'll pop that up on the website as well, so that you can get in touch with Kieran. But we'd love to hear you, and if it comes to Ivis, we'll forward it through to Kieran as well. But we received this message on Facebook. Hi Ben and Bryce, just catching up on episode 65, and you mentioned thinking about where people are listening to your podcast. So, we've got one guy was skiing down the slopes of Slovenia listening to us, and this is from Emma. I'm a soldier stationed here in Baghdad, Iraq. I also bought your book to have something tactile, which is our point.
Right.
Tactile that represents my plans for building on my existing portfolio when I return home. It's great to be able to look forward with real goals to pass the time, missing home, family and friends. Being here is a great lesson in how lucky we are to be Australian. Thanks and congrats on the success of your podcast. Looking forward to listening and implementing it when I get home. And then she said just go blue baggers, hashtag. So just let you know, Emma, Ben was really interested in what you had to say until hashtag. But no, I mean,
talk to Bryce, Emma. Don't talk to me.
I mean, how interesting is that? Here we are, sort of, wondering there's someone over there at the coalface in Iraq listening to our podcast, which is pretty good. So good luck with that, Emma. And if you've got any queries or questions that you'd like Kieran to answer in Australian Property Investor Magazine, send us an email and we'll get that through. So we get lots of people writing good stuff into us, Kieran, but it's been great having you on.
It's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate you asking me. Thank you.
No worries at all.
Now, this is the point where Iris under sort of
Professionalism.
She puts some music on. You know how it works.
Yeah.
Beginning of music. So she starts carving in the music at this point here.
Come on, we're over 40 minutes.
And
Let's just wrap this up, shall we?
It's the bit where most of our listeners drop off. So, no, it's not true. Ben does a tremendous job.
It's a lot of prep. I actually said, "Where's my piece of paper?" And I had to run out of the room and get it. That's how organised we are. Okay, so Tahitian.
Well, I think
And I'm doing real easy. Tahitian. Yeah. No.
Passes the pina colada. Is that?
No.
That's it.
That's it. Tahitian. No.
Well, I was confused. There's no French overtone. No.
I mean, there's some other real, fancy ones in behind that, but I'm just going, no.
And as Brad would, I always say to Brad, I'll make it Australian, so it looks like Nana.
Pahari, no.
Very good.
Pahari.
All right, well, anytime you're in Melbourne, mate.
How do you work with this guy?
He does.
That's
why he
the
works
challenge.
on the
He's an absolute genius in some parts, and then other parts he just says he's a Collingwood supporter and he does the sign-offs.
Yeah, he wants to help out.
No, he's a good bloke. Don't tell him. There you go, folks. We hope you've enjoyed that, getting some insights into the valuation process and Kieran's portfolio. And until next week.
No.
No. There, folks.